Does this get recorded, Karen? Just curious.
Okay, so yeah, I turned the recording on. So
okay, perfect.
Zoom forward. Okay, so welcome everybody. Let me pray us in and we'll move forward. Father God, thank you for the privilege of calling ourselves your daughters, for the freedoms that we have where we live right now to conduct Christian entrepreneurships everywhere and kind of have some power and some control over that, and may everything we do in our businesses and our lives personally as well bring you glory and honor. Be with Sang as she presents some information to us this week, and Callie as she prepares for next week as well with technology, because my internet's kind of been weak this morning. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. So basically, we are doing the second, third, and fourth Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time at this Zoom link that you've logged into are for members only, and they are education endeavors. Then we'll turn off the recording at about 40 minutes and do just networking and group coaching like we did last time. So hang in there, and if you have some special projects for them to do related to what you talk about, we might add those in at the end as well. Anything that will help people to take away, and take some sort of action steps. So again, all of May, June, and July, we're doing your online presence. The first Tuesdays are open to everyone. You should invite friends, and all other Tuesdays are for members only. And all of the links are in the first Monday of the month email that you get, in the cover of and pinned to the top of the feed of the NACWE membership Facebook group. As a member for 4 years, there were times I had trouble finding it, so I'm trying to make it so that all you have to do is go to one place and find the exact link that you need. Y'all already know, everyone who's in here already knows about the transitions, and so where to find information about Diane, me, and the transition, so we won't dwell on that. But I will tell you that she bought red shoes under her wedding dress. And she's going to a wedding dress fitting, she wanted you to know this morning. So, I mean, things are moving along. They're making decorations. And then you might have seen, I should put a link in here, you might have seen on the NACWE member Facebook page an invitation to a virtual shower for her, for those of you who aren't in Texas. Y'all already know our mission is to train, empower, and inspire Christian women as we build our businesses. We do that as we connect, create, and collaborate with each other. It's my favorite part of NACWE. So when we get ready to turn the recording off at about 40 minutes, which means probably 45, you be prepared to enter into the chat room your name, your location, your URL, one of your URLs, and a sort of 30-second commercial for yourself. And if the group is small, we'll even do a little bit more of that verbally on the screen. And then we'll do a little bit of networking and group coaching. Also, you can we just posted a Marketplace Monday meme in the NACWE member Facebook page, and you can put your information in there, and you can go on and on for miles in there if you want to. Things coming up. We talked to some folks about doing a Denver Regional Connect seminar in September. We have a date for that one. I'll have to post it later. And then we're going to try to do one in St. Louis with Kim and in Washington State with Barb in their areas. The collaborative devotional book should be popping up on the website any day if you want to get involved in that. And now you'll see at the top of the website a devotion tab. So click on that, and then soon in there you'll be able to click on the collaborative devotional book if you want to be part of the book and be published this year. Then we'll do some other collaborative books on leadership, legacy, and your business story from this last conference, and on the topic of next year's conference, which is Dauntless Generations of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. And then we have an October writing retreat coming up here in the Piney Woods Lake region of Texas. And then we're already starting to plan the conference in March. If y'all want to be, anybody who wants to be on a conference planning team, it would be great. let us know. Let's just go on with today. We're going to hear from, last week you heard from me. Next week you're going to hear from Callie. And today you're going to hear from Sang Zhang. She's on our team and has been here practically since the doors opened as copywriter and strategy coach. And so she says, your words can make a difference. Imagine sending out your latest newsletter or blog post and receiving an email from someone saying, thank you, I needed that. You helped me feel less alone. You seriously changed my day. We all need that confirmation for sure. So let me switch over to her PowerPoint. Everyone can hear me now, or am I still cutting in and out?
No, I think you're great.
Okay, so when you get started, everyone should be muted, even me, and I'll unmute myself if there's a question in the chat room, so you don't have to watch the chat room.
Okay, perfect. When you click on the thing, I know somebody made a comment, if you could click the slideshow button, so that way it fills the screen, because some of it's cut off on the other side. All right. Do we have anybody else who joined us? Let's see, let me go look. Pam, hi Pam.
Okay, Lou, I can't see the chat room, so you're going to have to pop in and out on the chat room if there are any questions from people. Can you do that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Perfect. All right, guys. I am ladies, not guys, ladies. I'm so excited to be here. Today we're going to talk about, it's going to be a little bit different for those of you who have come to one of my classes before. This time I'm making a little transition. A lot of things have happened in like the last 6 months, in the last 9 months, not only in my lives, but in your lives. And I really want to focus on the power of words. And Karen, you can go ahead and slide to the next one. Because to give you a little background about me, which some of you already know me at school, not a big deal. I've worked with NACWE for the last 4 years. I've been, working with Karen and the new team, getting to the transition. It's been fabulous. I have transitioned from copywriter, which we talked about a lot of before, is the power of words, different types of words, the sales, the marketing, all that jazz. And so in the last 9 months, I've done a little bit of shift into the communication strategy portion, which means I'm still writing, but not, but it's more, I'm teaching also how to decide what you're going to write and what you're writing about, and then how to pull the power of your words into your newsletters, into your blog posts, into your videos, and different things like that. I am the founder of the Single Mother Academy, which is out there, and I am a certified life coach for single moms. And of course, in my personal life, I'm all about the single moms. I like to celebrate that I made it through the first year of my son going to college, so I'm super celebrating in that. And getting ready to go into the last 2 years of my daughter's high school year, so that's going to be super exciting. So if anybody has any, tips, parenting tips, just let me know, because I'd love to hear them. And then you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Karen. So the next thing is that your words make a difference. So I know everyone's in the chat box. I feel really weird because I feel like I'm all alone because I don't hear any background noise. But I see all your faces, so it makes it great. Just go ahead and put something in the chat box if you remember something that maybe a teacher said, or a pastor has said to you, or your mom or your dad or anybody has ever said to you that made a difference in how you think or how you do things today. Just let me know over here in the chat box. I'm watching the chat box. We're going to make it interactive today. Does everybody see the chat box? Maybe I should have did a chat box test. Okay, maybe I can see it. Everybody can raise their hands. Maybe that works. Yeah, okay, great. That works a little bit better. Now I can see it. So thinking about, okay, Marsha said she's heard both positive and negative things and she remembers. Right, so a lot of times we remember some of the negative things, right? Some of those negative things kind of stick with us. And it could be something I remember something my dad said when I was 16. He was like, I have a different kind of love for you than I have for the other children, right? And it's so weird that that's the one thing that I remember, that piece, right? And to this day, that's one of the one things that I remember about him saying. But think about what I invite you to think about, is, you can go to the next slide for me, please, Karen, is think about the stories that you have right now. Like, I want you to really look at your life is not boring, right? We may think our lives are boring, but every single one of you and every story that you have, whether it was something that happened yesterday, whether it was something that happened last week, whether it was something that happened at any time in your life, there's a story behind there. And so this piece is about gathering the stories that are, that you can turn into writing pieces. So I'm going to pick someone, just, I can't see everyone's hands, but raise your hand if you want to share a story about something that happened in the last week. Anybody? I don't know how to unmute people. Or maybe you have to unmute yourself. Can I do that, Karen? Yeah? Okay, they can. Nobody wants to share a story, so I have to make them up all myself. Okay. All right, I'll share a story from you. Oh, wait, here you go. Lou's on. There you are. Is it Lou?
Yeah.
Okay, share a story with me.
Well, I was at a Kentucky Derby party this weekend, which was fabulous. We all wore great hats, and I thought, it's so random to be in suburbia with this group of people. And in the middle of it, this guy came over and talked to me, and I realized he was a guy that I met 6 years ago who really inspired me and like shifted like how I work, how I, think, like not accepting mediocrity anymore, basically. And he was the one that said, after I'm telling him about culture and I was just telling my whole philosophy behind it, he's like, you know that you're a paradigm buster. He's like, you're gonna break all this up. And I thought, it was one of those things like, when was the last time someone said that to somebody? So it was interesting because I was like, wow, I'm more interesting than I think I am to this guy.
Right. So their perception of us is always different, like especially if someone is telling us that story, right? And then we'd have to take an internal look at ourselves. So now I'm going to ask you, Lou, do you send out newsletters
No,
to your
not
audience?
yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Do you write blogs yet?
Not yet.
Do you write Facebook posts?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's use our Facebook post. So how could you write and share that story that would maybe have someone else do an aha or make them think back to a moment when someone did that to them, right? Just by sharing that story, you're giving other people permission to think back and realize how can I relate to this conversation? How is that relevant? And I remember my dad, I'm going to go probably a lot of references to my dad, but they're probably all negative. But I remember my dad telling me, you're never going to make it. You're never going to do anything. You're never going to do this. And you're just like, no, like, those are the things that are stuck there. And, but I invite you, I can't wait to see that post that you write on Facebook to kind of share that story. Now, the best part is I always talk about a call to action. So maybe at the end of it and say, does anybody else have a story like that? Or am I the only one, right? Because you're not the only one. But you get to, all those stories, everyone's stories can be interesting, inspiring, informational, and entertaining to your readers, right? Even yesterday, people who, I know everyone sees, they see the pink, they see the glitter, they see my Starbucks, right? Like all those things are little things that make me happy, and they are. And the crazy thing is, I don't even have it. It's in the refrigerator, actually. There's this cup that I can make a story about this cup. I went and got this cup this weekend at Starbucks because the cup was just so pretty and I wanted it. But have you ever thought about a time where there's something that you saw, it was so minute, but you're like, I just want that. It's going to make me happy. And that cup brought so much excitement to my world for like 3 days, right? It still does because it goes with me everywhere. But just thinking of that, what's that one thing that you've seen or that you must have because because sorry, I was looking at the chat box. I saw something. I want to make sure I didn't miss it. And so what's that one thing? What's that one thing that has inspired you? What's that one thing that makes you happy? It's not expensive, it's super simple. And then now when I share that story, of that one cup that now makes me want to drink so much water all day long, what is that one thing? It could be your favorite pens. I have my favorite Flair pens that I use. And so how do you turn that into a story, right? So, and then so the next slide, please, Karen. So then I'm going to ask, and this is where we're going to do a little interaction, because I know, let's see, I know Marsha, I know a little bit about Allie, I know Kim, Anita, I know a little bit. Pam, last time we talked, you were writing a book, right? Yeah. Okay. So now, my question is, what's stopping you from sharing your stories? And it could be the smallest of stories. Just Lou has her story about this weekend, about the Kentucky Derby. Yesterday, I had a story that I was so tired. I had on these cute, sparkly sweatpants. They weren't like baggy sweatpants or anything. They were just cute. And I had on my flip-flops, and I had on this blue top. And this lady comes up to me and said, well, I can't believe you showed up here in sweatpants. And me being snarky, though, I said, well, please tell me when your life is perfect every day, right? Because one, I was being judged because I wore sweatpants. But now the power of those words could have been so much different if I wasn't comfortable in my own sweatpants, right? Like, I could have gone home, I could have been sad, I could have been angry, I could have talked down, like, oh, she's right, I'm not good enough, I should have never worn these sweatpants, I should have never done this, I should have did this, I can't do that, and oh my gosh, I'll never leave the house again in these sweatpants, and now I'm gonna burn them. I mean, that's what happened. So those words could have been taken so many different ways. And thinking about how you can, what is the story that you have? Like, Kim, you have stories about money, right? Tons and tons and tons of stories about money. What could be something inspiring? Like, for me, I never leave a penny. Like, I don't care if it's on heads or tails. I'm picking up the penny. I saw the video where the people didn't pick up the penny and then they didn't get rewarded. So, but I'm picking up the penny, and every time I pick up the penny, I say, I love money and money loves me, and it comes to me infinitely, right? Like, that's my saying. But it's my story, and you get, you can do whatever you want. Maybe now you're not going to leave a penny unturned. You can say, I want to, yes, Starbucks makes me happy. If people want to meet with me, they probably should go to Starbucks, right? But the thing is when you tell your stories, not only are you giving them a life lesson or something that that inspires them, it's like, how can you turn everything that happens to you into a teachable moment, right? How can you turn that into a teachable moment that maybe makes someone think about what's going on? I mean, do we all have drama? Or go ahead and raise your hand if you have drama in your life at some point. Yeah? Okay. Raise your hand if you've ever been heartbroken about something, right? And raise your hand if, and I'm talking to the parents now, raise your hand if you have parenting stories, like 2 hands, right? Okay. And raise your hand if you have business snafus that you wish, people you could talk about, and just, share that. So maybe you're not repeating yourself 50 times, right? Raise your hand if you've ever had any kind of illness in your family that you want to talk about, right? And the thing is, so let's talk about something dramatic or illness, right? Because those are things that kind of are a little heartfelt. Is give me some words about what you were describing during that heartbreak or dramatic moment, or the illness. What are some things that come up? You can pop it in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and tell me, that's perfect too. I'll just play my Jeopardy music. Da, 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 da. Deep sadness, heartbreak, feeling vulnerable, angry, overwhelmed, distress. Right, right. So now I'm going to ask you, when you share a story about heartbreak, what does that do for your reader? Right? Are you able to let them know that they're not alone? Right. Yeah, they are not alone. Like, if there's overwhelm, I mean, how many of us are overwhelmed? And then, right? And then we could probably make a list of things we do to get out of overwhelm. Do you think that list would be helpful for your audience? If it's helpful for you, it's helpful for someone else. Even if they don't take all 50 things that you have to do to get out of overwhelm, right? I mean, I know for me, I like to take a walk. That might not be your thing, but something on the rest of my list can definitely pull them in and say, you're not by yourself. You know, I had a friend last week who called me up, and I missed the phone call, but when she calls, it's important. And so I saw that she called, and I called her right back. And I said, she had just found out that her sister had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And she knows my work that I do with Susan G. Komen. And so she said to me, she said, saying, I'm feeling selfish because I have all these feelings that are going on. I feel sad. I feel heartbroken. I feel this. I feel that. And she just said, I said, Paula, it's okay for you to feel what you feel, right? They're your feelings. It's not selfish that you feel that. Those are your feelings. I totally understand that you feel bad for your sister. I totally understand where you feel selfish. But what happens is when we internalize that and we don't let it out and we don't let us feel what we feel, then we go into a darker place, right? It starts affecting our work. It affects our conversations. Maybe we become snappy to our friends or different things like that. So just thinking about the power of your story, and all of this is about the words that you speak. It could be the ones that you speak, whether you do it in a podcast, whether you do it in a newsletter, whether just letting them know that they're not alone, right? They're not alone in what they're feeling. And you have that power, right, to inspire someone, to give them permission to look on the other side. So now I ask, of course, what is stopping you? What's the one thing that you feel is stopping you yourself from sharing any story or stories or anything like that? Share with me over here in the chat box so I can take a peek. And while you're doing that, I'm going to read some of the things over here. Karen says, my story about overwhelm touches people at a personal level. Lets them know they're not alone, right? Empathy. Fear of being judged or having it used against me. Okay. Good one, Pam. It's totally a big one. Anybody else? I think, otherwise I'm just going to think that everyone writes everything and it's perfect, right? Perfectionism. Anita says, most people feel their story is not interesting to others, but it's not true. Oh my goodness. Diane has taught me to let it go. Yes. I have no fear to talk about any of my stories. Kudos, Marsha. High five. Sounding whiny and complaining. Yeah. We often feel we're not a good speaker. Oh, I have such a good thing for that. Okay, great. Self-censoring until the story loses its power. Good. Sharing a story in conversation after someone tells me something and I can tell my story can help. Then I share, but share uninvited is hard to me. Okay, great. And we don't feel we can write well. Oh, so good. Guys, this is so amazing. And you're like, what? How is this amazing? Because this is exactly why we're here, right? You're right, Pam. Sharing stories and feeling judged, it's very challenging. What I invite you to do is look at the lesson that's in whatever that story is. I wrote a story about postpartum depression. It took me 13 years to write it. So you get to write it in your own time, okay? It took me 13 years to write about my postpartum depression. But what I also for me, I wanted to make sure I was able to talk to my daughter about it before she heard these stories that I had written about her, you know, and I wanted her to know what happened. Because in that story, I didn't touch my daughter. I didn't feed my daughter. I didn't have anything to do with her for the first 3 months of her life. Right. And then the story of how it shifted was, of course, the inspiring part. But what I wanted to connect with was I connected with the women who, when you're in postpartum depression, you have no idea. Your mind is not yours. Right. And so it was okay to be in that space and to be able to share that. Now, did I get people who were like, I can't believe you would never do that. I can't believe you wouldn't touch your kid. And so here come the judgy people, right, who are there to throw mean things at me. But what I knew is that it was my time to share the story, and it was okay that I share the story, and that it could potentially save someone's life, or it could potentially give someone an aha that, oh, this can happen. You know, because I'm sure there's mothers out there. They're obvious. I've heard them already. Is how can you possibly not have touched your child for 3 months? You know, that's almost as hurtful as when my son said to me one day, "How could you have stayed with a man who beat you?" I mean, those questions can go in different ways. That question alone is something that you can go and share the story. But when you give the details of whatever that story is, that's when you reel them in and you kind of pull that together. And then the self-censoring, Lou, happens all the time. Totally understand that, because we want to just tweak it, and that kind of goes in line with what Karen said about perfectionism, right? We want to make it just perfect, or we want to make it sound less judgy, or we want to make it sound less whining, and so that we're not complaining, right? And so that self-censoring comes in, and so, you know, you're like, how do I make this work? And who said the piece about I'm not a good writer? Oh, we often feel we're not good as a speaker. So here's a little mini challenge for you, is sit down with a friend and have your friend interview you, ask you questions about some stories that you know that you repeat all the time. I have plenty of them myself. And record the conversation. Okay? Record the conversation and then go back and listen to yourself. And this goes back to your voice, right? When you go back and listen to your voice, you will hear exactly how you talk, and then you can then relay that into words. Because remember, if you've been in any of my classes before, you know that I am a big advocate of your voice is yours. If someone else tried to come up here and teach this class, you would teach it in a totally different way, right? And so, you know, yeah, have a friend interview, replay, listen, totally listen. And the other thing is you can completely get that story transcribed, and now it's your story that you can place in a Facebook page, on your status, in a blog. You know, if you need someone to transcribe, I have teenagers here who would love to do it for you. If you if you need it for like $1 a minute, I think rev.com does transcriptions too. You know, there's ways to make that happen. And just feeling, so go to the next slide for me, Karen, please. So then a lot of times there's that resistance of sharing the story, and then the resentment of sharing the story. Does anybody know quite what the difference maybe in those two would be when you're getting ready to share a story? You can just unmute yourself if you wish.
Your tone comes through,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it? I mean, a little bit.
So yeah, your tone definitely is a big deal. What else is there? Do you have it? I'm gonna just keep digging. What else?
Okay.
Like, what does resentment feel like?
A victim.
But it's heavy, right?
Yeah.
So resentment's really heavy. And your resistance to doing something, this could be anything, not just writing, right? But your resistance to doing something, like, you know you need to do it, you know you need to look at all your finances, right? But it's that anxiety built up. You know, it's like, can I really do this, right? The resentment piece is where that's heavy. It's like the whole weight is like right here, and it's like, you know, you just don't want to do it. Like, it doesn't feel good. And you're just not ready, you know? And so that's the difference between resisting telling your story and having the resentment of telling a story. Like, there's a difference. So if you can, and, you know, and I always tell people, I understand we're a Christian group and I love all of you, but my favorite effort is feel. Okay. It's, what do you feel? Like, how do you feel about it? I remember I used to talk to Diane all the time, and I would say that to Diane, and she's like, oh, why do you always ask me that? But it's the truth. When you understand how you feel about something, then you will know, does this feel good? Is this something I'm ready to share? Is this something that I'm ready to teach? Is this something that, does this belong in my life? Is this something that I'm going to change a life with? Is this something that I can teach a lesson with? Or is it something that I just need to push through and say, hey, I'm going to come out on top on the other side after I share this story?
Karen asked a good question.
Sure.
She said, if you feel resistant, just do it. But if you feel resentment, are you not ready to tell your story?
Completely. Absolutely. Because the thing with resentment is it's so heavy that if you fight through it, and then you're going to keep looking at it, and you're going to be like, this is not it. This is not it. I've done that with courses. When I've written mini courses, I'll write a course or something, and then I look at it and it's like, it just doesn't feel right. Right. And it's anything that you write. Like if you write an email back to somebody and it just doesn't feel good or it feels icky, then, that's that heavy thing that's there. And the reason why it took me 13 years, other than that I wanted to talk to my daughter, is one, I feared that people would judge me because I didn't touch my daughter. I felt like it just wasn't my time. So when I tell you that it took me 13 years to share that story, it really did. There could be times, there's still, there's things that are happening right now that I'm not quite sure how I want to tell them, but I can still tell them in a respectful way, and where it's not going to, jeopardize the integrity of myself or jeopardize the integrity of somebody in the story. Because, you remember the stories you read where it's like, these names have been changed to protect innocent. You can always say that if you want to. You could totally make up stories. You can make up names. You can, all that stuff. It's the teaching behind the story itself and what you have, because your words have so much power. And as parents, if you're a parent, and if you're not, just think about this. Even with Lou, I don't know if you have children, but I'm going to use you as an example. This is something this man said to you 6 years ago, right? And you remembered. So people may not get it at the time, right? Or you may hear something and you're like, what, me? Like, you think about it, me? And then it sits in your head for a long time, trying to figure out, what is that coming from? So everyone is always listening. Everyone always remembers that one thing that changed them, right? Whether it was a story, whether it was something that someone said specifically, or whether it is, just somehow they resonated to you. Like, I have single mother stories all day, but that doesn't mean that not that there's regular, but like unsingle mothers don't relate to my mother and parenting, right? I'm sure we all have children who listen. Said no one ever. So sometimes you just kind of have to kind of go through there and be like, okay, I have this story. How can I inspire someone else? One of my biggest things is I always say no to things, and my kids know not to ever set me up for volunteerism unless I say it's okay. So just knowing exactly who you are and how things make you feel, and having everyone on board with what you're doing. And I know my timer went off, which means I got to hurry. And so my next slide there, Karen, is my favorite, right? You guys all know this from before, is that anytime you're getting ready to write something, whether it's an email, whether it's a blog post, whether it's your newsletters, whether you're about to do your podcast, is thinking about, what do you want your audiences to feel, or what are they feeling right now, right? And what do you want them to know? And that thing could be to inspire them. It could be to tell them to go take a walk today. It could tell them to smile today. Something so simple. The last week for me, everything has been about ease and simplicity. How can I make things so easy? you know, I have a story that I'm writing right now. It's about my niece and my nephew are coming into town in a few weeks, and they're excited about this big pink bucket that's in my living room. It's just a bucket. As an adult, we're like, why do we, it's a bucket, you know? But as kids, look through the eyes of the kids. It's so simple. So what do you want your, what do you want your audience to feel? What do you want them to know? And what do you want them to do? You know, you could talk about how a smile changed your life one day or changed the direction of your day. You know, it could be a compliment, how one compliment changes. And so then what do you want them to do? Maybe you want them to make, you know what, smile at the next 5 people that you see. Give a compliment to the next 5 people. I'm here. I know my purpose here is to bring kindness through words and through our teachings and through our stories. And people are going to judge us regardless, which kind of stinks. And I'm not one to say, oh, you need to get thick skin or you need to get like that. But, you know in your heart that your story matters. Your story means something. Your story can change someone's life. And even a simple thank you note, right? The simple thank you note gives so much. But yeah, definitely anything, everything that you feel, know, and do when you're writing all that jazz. Next slide, please, Karen. And I'm going to do the quick recap, right? Is one, your life is not boring. I mean, raise your hand if you think your life is boring. Sometimes I think mine is, because on a Friday night I'm sitting at home and someone said to me the other day, why, it's Friday night, why are you sitting at home? I'm like, I'm catching up on my shows this week. Like, I'm like, this is my life. My life is not boring. But it also gave me a moment to look around and say, I live a really good life. Your words have power. Your words are powerful. Your stories are powerful. Why? Because your life is not boring, right? And my ultimate goal is for all of you to write something this week with love and intention. Whether it's a lesson, it's a teachable moment, it's something from the past that you want to talk about. That's just that you're writing it with the intention for love, not the intention to hurt or the intention to be demeaning or dismissive or anything like that, but just coming from the heart space and really talking about what's internalized for you. And so for you lovely ladies, next slide please, ma'am, is there's always something fun that I have whipped up, and it's always fun. Earlier this year, I did a series called the Love Letter Writing Series. And so for 10 days, I sent out prompts, and people received different love letters to write to people, whether it was your friend, whether it was a colleague, whether it was your neighbor, right, or your favorite barista. And so during that we did different things where they all wrote different letters, and they sent out 10 letters in 10 days, and it was super fun. And so what I learned is that there was a little bit of a shift, because it's like, oh, they were all excited, but then how do we take something like that? And so I created Writing with Love. And writing with love is just changing up your habits just a little bit, and like your attitude towards this writing, right? How can I write in the teachable way? How can I shift and say, how can I take the lesson yesterday about the sweatpants, and turn that into something that's inspiring? I shared it today in the store. Like, I was at Starbucks this morning. I shared this story, and the lady was like, I can't believe she said that to you, right? Because we don't think about sometimes the things that we say. And so the Writing with Love is 7 days. You get 7 days of lessons, 7 days of writing prompts. Actually, it's lessons plus little mini prompts, mini story writing prompts. So that means that how many of you have blogs? Raise your hand. Wish I could see everybody's face at one time. Oh wait, wrong button. And then how many of you have newsletters that go out? Yeah. Okay. How many of you have Facebook pages? Yeah. I see someone like, I don't really want to raise my hand, but, and then how many of you talk to people every day? Right? And I promise you, you're sharing a story at some point during the day, right? So through the 7 days, you'll get different ways to, there's story prompts. You get 7 stories, 7 lessons, 7 story prompts that you get to create. And then it'll be ideas on how to share, how to turn those into blog posts, how to turn them into newsletters, how to turn them into Facebook Lives if you're doing Facebook Lives, how to turn them into Facebook statuses. Because the ultimate thing is when you connect with people, then they are more apt to trust you, which is, now we're going to the sales marketing stuff, but what is it? Like and trust, right? Is that right? They like and trust you. When they resonate with you, they connect. They're connecting with you. And they're like, oh, she's just like me. She does that just like me. My favorite story of all time in the last 6 months, no like and trust. There you go, Marsha. Thank you. Is I was having a bad day. And my friend is on the phone with me. I talked to her every day for like a good 4 months, right? Every day. And I was having a bad day. And she said to me, saying, I had no idea that you had bad days. And I literally was like, what? I said, every superhero has to take their cape off. Right? We are not superheroes all the time. And when she said that to me, it just made me think about how we as women do that, right? Or moms, surely, and wives and all this jazz, is we have this cape on all the time. And we never give ourselves permission to take it off. So I turned that into a story too. I told you I have a million stories. But the Writing with Love is going to focus on those 7 lessons, taking your stories and turning them into teachable moments, taking those stories and turning them into inspirational pieces, and changing a life in some sort of way. And so I thought of this earlier. So it is $39, right? I'm going to put it in the marketplace, Karen, so it'll be there for the people as well, for the NACWE women. And it's $39. Why? Because I'm 39. I just thought it was fun. I mean, why not, right? Next slide, please, ma'am. And I'll plop this into the Facebook group, and you get a special price. There's a code that you get to put in, all that jazz. I'll make sure that's in the group. And there was a story I wanted to share real fast. I don't know if I have time, but I think the next slide, Karen. Oh, I gave you a writing prompt, but I don't know if you want to do that last. So we can do that after you turn the recording off if you want. Yeah, okay. So you can just take that screen down so they can focus on me. So there you have it. And then I want to know, there's lots of different things. Oh, darn it. I wish I remembered the story I was going to share. But that kind of wraps it up for me. I feel like I've talked a million miles a minute. But I don't know. What's next, Karen? What do we do next?
No, okay, so I loved it. And I put my what was it?
Feel, know, and do.
I put my feel, know, and do in there. I feel so encouraged. I know my story matters. Now I'm going to write with love and intention. Blog at least, but maybe more.
I love, you know what? I love that. Your know, feel, and will. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
I have to have takeaways, and I must do something with it. One of my perfectionism issues, but it gets me to the next place for sure. So I appreciate that. So let's do this. We'll leave this screen up here for the special. I'm going to hit you up for the special since I'm hiring you as a coach anyway. I'm inviting myself in. And then let me pray us out, stop the recording, and then let's get everybody up on the screen and do a little bit of networking and coaching. So y'all be prepared to put in things into the chat box. Let me pray us out. Father God, I'm so grateful. I needed a reminder that my stories, well, I know my life isn't boring, but I often think that my stories aren't told in a way that's not boring. And so it was a great reminder and encouragement from saying to me today to remember that our stories touch people's lives and change people's lives. And we may not know whose life is going to be touched, but we're still responsible to step out in faith and tell our stories. I thank you for the example that Diane has been of telling really gutsy stories, that Marsha has been of telling stories, of the example that Lou has given us about ways to tell a story, because learning there's a right way and a wrong way, and a way that really reaches out and touches people. So I would just pray, Lord, that we carry this message with us throughout the week, that it would influence everything we have to do, the way we talk to people and the way we write, whether it's a Facebook post or more. And I would ask a blessing on Sang and her kids as well as they tell their stories, for sure. And be with us during this next networking session. May all we do in this next few minutes please you, and throughout the day as well. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so let me figure out how to push the button.
So while you're doing that, I just want to say that anybody on this recording, because you are special to me, if any of you purchase this this week, I'm not cutting any time on, as long as it's done by the 22nd, it's cool with me, or the 21st actually, is when you write, I'll take one of, you can send me one of your pieces and I'll give you like a good 30-minute review of it and just kind of work with you over the whole overview and give you some feedback.
Cool.
So it's only for the, since it's not being recorded. Oh,